So today, Chris is with us. I went to his profile a number of times on water energy Nexus, and the thing which is making prominent that he's working on water positive. I'd love to know about what he thinks and how he's doing, and what he takes the current challenges and the future of the planet and the world. So please, Chris, tell us more about your passions for water and energy Nexus.
Thanks, Abdul. It's really great to be with you, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about water energy nexus anytime anybody gives me the opportunity. So thank you. I am a firm believer in water. That it is obviously, it's one of the most critical issues that we face as humans and any organisms on the planet, as we need air and water. And our water is in a crisis situation, as we're all very well aware. And so I think at the very heart of everything that we do in terms of sustainability and circularity and urban planning, and even planning into villages and rural areas, all of this must focus on water. And just before we started, you and I talked about how, water drives energy and energy drives water. And so one of the things that we are looking very seriously, I'm a vetted member of Water Positive, very proud to be part of that. It's a global think tank of water experts from around the world. China is our latest addition, and we're very thrilled to have our first members from China join. And we get together to talk about what we can do in terms of making a water positive impact on the world. And what that means is that we are actually giving more water back than we're taking out of the system. So therefore, a water positive view. And apart from the fact that it's an organization, that's really the way that my company, Vision 22, has responded, in the fact that we have opportunity to put more back into the system than we're taking out. But we have to be willing to do what it takes to actually follow through with that. And so by looking at new technologies, by looking at a concept of true circularity in what we do, we are able to actually do that. We're able to put more water back into the system than we're taking out of the system. And one of the coolest ways that we're looking at developing that is the sludge and the byproduct and the waste products, Abdul, that I know you know about this, that comes out of water treatment. And for far too long, those have been landfilled. They've been taken to disposal sites. We haven't seen the value that can come from the waste products that we're taking out of the water treatment. Pretty well every water treatment process that you do, whether that's nanofiltration or nanochemistry or DAFs or moving biofilm reactors, whatever it is, there's going to be a solid component to that, a sludge component. And so we see now that we're able to actually utilize technology, especially AI, and the fact that we can get so precise now on chemistry and what the constituent products are that are found in the water. And now we can take that and we can turn that into an energy source by utilizing waste energy, mixing that with organic waste from landfills, from food processing, from agriculture. So that's that water energy nexus, right? Now we're treating water, but we're producing an energy source that allows us, if anything else, we have energy that can run the water treatment systems, which is not taking energy from a grid constrained system, and it's not also taking the water. It's actually putting more water back in.
Yeah, very good. So really nice to know about the water chemistry and the sludge produced and having the energy from that. And we talk nowadays a lot on water circularity and real time. If the water circularity is intact, we're working on that model. Still, we have inputs and outputs. So being a water positive society, a water positive city, or a country, or an organization, industry, we are taking input water and what we are giving out. And if we are water positive, like we take the concept of the rain, So the replenish of the water losses of evaporation or the leakage. So be the water positive and the energy positive. Nowadays, what is that the AI and IoT based, Internet of Technologies based, the technology driven products, but also we are hearing about the nutrient recovery. So how you see the current, what are the current challenges to be a water positive organization or water positive?
So I think in terms of the current challenges, again, it comes back to the integration of technology into our systems to allow us to be able to capture more water than we're actually using. And the problem with this, and you've hit on the leakage. I was working just a couple of weeks ago with a sensor company that's out of the UK, and we did some very just I can look out my window here where I'm talking to you, and I just went to the fire hydrant and put a
Yeah.
sensor on and found out that there's a
Wow.
medium leak. Okay,
Yeah.
at the fire hydrant. I don't think the city even knows. But how many thousands
Yes.
of fire hydrants are there in the city, right? How many of those fire hydrants are leaking? How much of that water is not going back into the system? In fact, it's being taken out and it's going nowhere. It's not being replenished. And so I think part of our biggest issue, and we see this, my background is in oil and gas, and we see this all the time in old pipelines, in the systems that we've developed, where the wastewater and that could be potentially something that we could use, okay, is actually leaking out. It's going into underground, channels or whatever that are never finding their way into an actual system where we can treat that water. Same with fresh water. We're bringing fresh water in, but if our pipes and our infrastructure are broken, we're losing water that we're never going to get back. And
Yeah.
so we have the technology, as you are aware of, Bill, that we can now put that technology into our pipeline infrastructure, into what we're doing in terms of industrial or even municipal systems. And just starting there, if we were able to start recapturing that water that we're losing out of the fire hydrant, okay, that's water
Yeah.
that we need. That's
Yeah.
water that we need to run the city. And it's going into nowhere. I wouldn't have a clue where it's going, somewhere into the ground. And so somebody might say, well, maybe ultimately it finds its way to the water table. I highly doubt it. Okay. I think that it's probably just gone. And so these are the challenges because we have the technology, okay, that exists. We have the technology to treat, we have the technology to analyze. What we need right now is the will, right? We need the
Yeah.
will to be able to say as a city or say as a company that water must become our number one critical issue. Okay, profit is wonderful. But if you're operating in a place that doesn't have any water and infrastructure, then profit really doesn't matter, right? And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and I've said this in the last couple of weeks because I'm not sure we'll have time, but our company is designing a circularity system that begins and ends with water. And but part of that is it also becomes a community. It's a model for a circular community. And that's the problem, is that when we make community ROI the priority over profit ROI profitability inside of our companies, which of course is important. But when we prioritize the ROI of a community, what's the return on investment for the community? That's what we need to think about first. Then we begin to reimagine and re-envision all of these systems that we have. These systems that are been around for a long time, that have served us very well, but now are aging. They need
Yeah.
work. They're causing
Yeah.
issues. And
Yeah.
that water will never be found again that we're losing out of that fire hydrant unless we take the steps that are necessary to do it and prioritize community over just making money all the time, right? Making money, of course, that's how we drive business and
Yes.
capital and everything else. But if we're not taking care of our systems, Abdul, then this is the problem, right? This is really the fundamental issue. What is driving us and what is our priority? It must start with our priority must get back to being community. And when we do that, I think we begin to live an energy positive life. We begin to live a
Yeah.
water positive life because we're prioritizing not just ourselves, but those around us, right?
Yeah,
And that's a really critical mindset that you have to have if you're going to think about water energy nexus in terms of a positive response.
yeah, exactly. So whenever we speak on that, that today I learned that you need a will to do, and parallelly, what is the ROI? What is the return on investment to keep the interest alive? So these are the things. But whenever if you are water passion and water guy, you always set the prioritize. The objective is water. And here, when I see that, whenever you say we call it the like climate finance, we call it water finance. So
Mhm.
rather than this, the project is how we can be the will, can create a will to be a positive, and then make a project and go for the execution. Seeing is ROI. Currently, we have I've seen in even my country that there is a drought and the flood on the same time. So, like always, from the British ruling time or now, the infrastructure is getting older and older. So, when you have an older infrastructure, from where to start, where to end, where to go, but the brighter thing, the optimistic thing is this that you have a lot of brain, AI, and technology is available. Like you are saying, that same is this water sensors we sometimes import from France, that you can judge your water to the real time knowledge, real time data. So
Mhm.
we are getting on our cell phone what is the turbidity, what is the dissolved oxygen level, what is the pH. Similarly, like you mentioned the fire hydrant. So we can calculate, everything is now calculatable and quantifiable, and you can, it's help the data to make the decision. So this is very good, very interesting. More you read and more you. So what you will advise on to improve current scenario water energy nexus, that how to keep the KPIs or the ROI level even the better to make all our society energy and water positive.
So again, I think that it's not just thinking about what we're going to do with the water that we have, which obviously is very important. Okay, I live in a city here where just north of me is the big river that we get our water from, and so we look at that, and everybody looks at that water and says, "Oh man, well, we need to make sure that we take care of that." That's true. But again, there's all the water that's lost. Okay. There's the water that's being wasted. There's the water that we're never getting back. There's the water that's going into industry that's not being recycled. And so all of that has to now begin. I think, quite frankly, Abdul, um, if we're going to really truly look at the water energy nexus in a city, okay, or in the country, but let's start in the city level,
Yeah,
okay, the municipal level, even in a community within a city level, that we cannot just think about what the visible water is doing, okay,
yeah,
the lake or the reservoir or the river. It's
yeah,
very critical. We have to think about the water we cannot see. Okay. It's the water that we cannot see that is the
yeah,
critical part. The water
yeah,
that we see is always visible. And yes, it's polluted. So we want to take care of that. Of course we do. But what about the water that we're not seeing?
yeah,
There's usually as much, if not more, water that we are not seeing that needs to be starting to be taken care of. And that's where I believe our passion collectively to deal with water comes in. And more importantly, now, the water, even in non renewable sources of water. For instance, okay, my background, like I say, is oil and gas. Oil and gas wastewater is not part of the aquifer. Okay. Yes, we
yeah,
do use fresh water, a lot of fresh water, far too much fresh water for oil and gas operations than we ever should. Okay. But at the same point in time, that water is water that can be treated, and that water can be now put into a system that doesn't have it to be able to now work with that water and actually treat that water and make it part of the long term project. And so I think if we begin to think of water not just visible, which is very
yeah,
important, we don't want polluted reservoirs and rivers, but we begin to think about the water that is invisible, the water that we cannot see, and what are we doing with that?
Yeah.
And what's the priority in and around that water? Because that water, when we rethink that, will also now help to replenish the water that obviously is polluted that we need to deal with. But it's that water that's being wasted and lost, and industrial water that would never be part of the system in terms of, let's say, oil and gas, like I said, as an example. Okay, this is water that we need to start rethinking. So,
yeah, very good. So, very nice about from invisible to visible. Visible, what we all see, and invisible water we have to take care. And I'm very grateful, Chris. And I always say that water carries no religion, no boundary, and we all are
yeah.
one on this planet. Yeah. Thank you very much and in joining, and we'll be learning from your post and your experiences. Take care and bye bye.
Thank you so much, Abdul. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Bye.